Hey guys, and welcome to another season of the Us People podcast. I'm your host, Savia Rocks, and in this season, we uncover the remarkable power of genuine compassion and insightful vision. This season, we're here to show the world that we, as individuals, are the brand, regardless of misconceptions. Join us as we go deep into the inspiring journeys of our guests, each one a testament to the impact and influence of kindness and creativity. Don't just take my word for it. Hear their stories, feel their passion, and discover the transformative potential within us all. So stay tuned as we shine a light on the truths that connects us and inspires change.
Hi, this is Matt Beveridge. I am the Chief Innovation Officer and one of the co-founders of Boulder and Pebble Studios, and you're listening to the Us People podcast with Savia Rocks.
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Us People podcast. I'm your host, Savia Rocks, and today I am abundantly humbled to have Matt here with me. Matt is a Chief Innovation Officer and co-founder. We are going to get into exactly what he does a little bit later. But Matt, my lovely Matt,
hello.
Thank you so much for taking your time to come on the Us People podcast. How are you?
Thank you so much. I'm great, thank you. Yeah, really well. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. It's a genuine honour. I love your podcast. So I listen to so many podcasts and audiobooks, and this is one of my faves. So yeah, thank you so much for having me.
You are more than welcome. So Matt, you know I always ask two questions that are quite similar in the beginning, and then we drift off into the world of Matt. So my first question for you is, could you tell me about yourself, where you grew up, and how that influenced you to be the person who you are today?
Sure. You'd have thought that I'd be prepared for this, but I'm really not. Do you know what? It's really, knowing I was going to come on here, I have thought about this a lot, and it's a really tricky answer because there's so much in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the thing that's really fascinating, or that I think about my past, is in some ways it's a bit of a game of two halves. When I grew up, I genuinely just had like such a brilliant childhood. It was so good. I lived in this sort of really lovely little village in Kent in the southeast of England, and it was in a real it's like the Shire out of Lord of the Rings. You know, it's very hobbity. It's really rural, lovely, rolling hills. It's just really lovely. My parents were amazing. And so, initially growing up, you just couldn't really want more. I've got a younger brother, and we were given so much freedom just to run around the village from a very early age and do whatever we wanted. And it was just great. It was really good. And then, I loved primary school, loved secondary school. And I think secondary school is where things started to turn a little bit, if that makes sense. And yeah, it's because when you get a bit older, especially when you get into your teens, you start asking, who am I and who do I want to be, and what do I want to be when I grow up? And I guess, spoiler alert, I'm 43 now. I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. It's interesting. Going to the teens, I went to a private school. Went to an all boys private school, and it's it's a real kind of classic posh school. It's kind of 500 years old, and it's kind of, if you imagine Hogwarts but with a cricket pitch instead of Quidditch, that's basically the school I went to.
That's
really
the way
old.
you describe it.
Sorry, but I don't know, that's how I look at it. And it's an amazing school, but I did not fit the mold at all, which was weird. So I've got made some great friends, had a really good time. I've always loved playing sport, and it was a really sporty place, which is great for me. But the thing about that school was it was a real, and it still is to this day, actually. I met up with the headmaster there recently, and it is still a factory that just churns out accountants and lawyers. And there's nothing wrong with accountancy and lawyering. My wife's a lawyer, so I'm going to caveat that right now. But and I've got some great friends who are accountants. But it is a school that just has this kind of production line of what you would classify as like old-fashioned safe jobs, and I didn't really fit that mold at all. I loved art. I just wanted to do art and sport, and I was always good at sport, but I was never good enough in my mind to try it as a career, like go professional at anything. But art was just my favourite thing in the world. Like even the school holidays, I would go in like summer holiday to the art block at the school and hang out there and go just make things. And who goes to school in their holidays? No one does that. I look back at it, I was like, what was I thinking? But it was just great. The art block was just where I hung out, and the school, even though they had quite good art facilities, they weren't interested in creative careers at all. So for example, like when I was at uni, when I was at school, everyone used to do 3 A levels, and I asked if I put art down as an A level, and the school said no.
What?
And they said you can only do art if you do economics or business studies, so that when art fails, and when art fails, this is like their exact phrase, like when art fails, you've got something to fall back onto. And at the time, that was just like a bit mortifying. And I look back at it now, and I can kind of understand the psychology of it, because people think of art as being painting, and there's whatever you do as a career in general, you do have to be kind of business savvy about it. You have to think about the kind of, if you want to be a poet, that might be really fun, but you're probably not going to make much money, and you're probably going to struggle to
Tell me
earn a
about
living.
it.
So, and not that I'm a good poet by any means, yeah, so I think they saw art as this quite old-fashioned thing, whereas now, like, you look at the creator economy that's out there now, you look at, what I do, my background is in motion graphics and animation and visual effects. There's so much out there. Like, Netflix didn't exist back then. Amazon Prime didn't exist back then. And, the amount of incredible TV shows and movies that are on there now that are hiring thousands and thousands of people and putting so much money into it. Obviously, there could be more money put into it, and there are economic challenges on the businesses in those areas as well. But like, for schools not to be taking that industry seriously is infuriating. And so, yeah, I went in, and so everyone else is pretty much doing 3 A levels, and I was doing 4. And after a year of economics. Oh man, so I shouldn't say. So this story, I basically, after a year of economics, I was putting more time into trying to do something I was crap at and didn't want to do, because I hate being a failure at anything. I hate being bad at stuff, and I was putting more time into economics than all my other 3 levels combined, because I wanted to understand it. And at the end of the year, I basically said, look, I can't do this anymore because I don't want to do this. And the school said, all right, okay, fine. And my parents agreed. They're like, look, at the end of the year, you got your mock A level, so have a go at your mocks, and if you do well at your mocks, then carry it on, and if you do badly, then you can give up and just concentrate on art, which should be like an
incentive.
Green flag,
yeah.
Like, off you go, don't bother anymore. But I'm quite competitive, and I hated being bad at anything, so I really put a lot of effort into revision, and I did these 2 economics exams, and I came out just like, oh man, I've shot myself in the foot, because I've nailed those exams. I've absolutely nailed them, and I reckon they're going to make me carry on. And then a couple of days later, they give you the results. They post the results on this sheet outside the classrooms.
Oh, yeah.
And there was like 52 kids in the year doing economics. I still remember it. And it's like first to last. And I was like, I looked at the top. I was like, well, I won't be first, but I'll be up there somewhere. I'm like, first, second, third, no, fourth, fifth, 10th. And I just kept going down and down. And I came 51st out of 52, and I got an average of like 36%. And I looked at it and it was just like such a big failure. It was like so laughable that you couldn't even get angry. I just looked at it. I was like, well, that's that then. Okay. And so then, yeah, but you know what? It's a good lesson to like learn. But yeah, and then I got into art and I just, I loved it. I went to school, A-level art, loved A-level art. One of the things that was great about it was when all my mates were trying to get like 3As to go to Oxford or Cambridge, I just needed 3Cs at GCSE to get into art college to do foundation year. And it was all based on my portfolio. So I had a pretty decent portfolio. So I got in and then, and it's really interesting going from a very private school, like very expensive, posh private school. One of the best things about going to a private school that was like really well funded was that they had amazing facilities. Their art facilities were amazing. But the funny thing about them not taking art that seriously is that they didn't, when they had these facilities, they didn't have the teachers to really teach them properly. So they had like the first versions of Photoshop. They had a photography like dark room. They had computers, all this stuff, and no one to really teach it. Aww. So me and one of my best mates, who I still see all the time now, I've known him since I was 10, and we used to just go into the art block and would say to the school, like, can we learn photography? They're like, yeah. Like, have you got any teachers to teach it? Like, no. Okay. They're like, but here's some books. Right, okay, cool. So they just handed us books and a load of chemicals and just told us to figure it out. Yeah. So me and my mate Tom would just go into the dark room for days and just like play with chemicals and work out how to do like wet photography, because digital photography didn't really exist back then. And we just figured it out, and you just kind of learn in your own terms. And then my favorite is like the way this is how I got into graphic design. Like, no joke, this was my entry to graphic design. They had these computers with Photoshop on, and we said, could we learn Photoshop? And they went, yeah. Like, cool, have you got anyone who can teach it? They went, no. Well, okay, fine. And they're like, here's a book. So they gave us this book of how to learn Photoshop. And obviously we were like 16 at the time. First thing you do, fake IDs.
Yes.
So we went straight for fake IDs, and we started to work out how to change the dates on our passports and all this sort of stuff. And then and then the head of art came in. The art teacher came in. He knew nothing about digital, like graphic design. He was a paint guy. Really nice bloke, but didn't really care about digital anything. And he came in and he looked at us. He's like, "What are you guys doing?" And we're like, "We're learning Photoshop." "What are you doing on Photoshop?" "We're making fake IDs." He's like, fascinating. How are you doing that? And he didn't tell us off at all. It was like a green light, and we were like, okay. So suddenly, then we had this fake ID business going, where like all of our mates were requesting fake IDs, and it was brilliant. So if there's any bouncers out there from the Kent area who saw California driver's licenses for like 16-year-olds in the mid-90s, they were probably supplied by me and Tom.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was great. So that's how I got into graphic design. But yeah, so then I went to art college. Absolutely loved art college. Art college was amazing. I went to Ravensbourne in southeast London, and it was really cool. It was like the first time I'd really found other people who loved what I was into. Graphic design, film. I was bunking off one day. They had this video library. It was amazing. It was like back in the days of Blockbuster and all that stuff. And the art college had this video library that was massive, just VHSs as far as you could see, and it just had every movie I could ever imagine. And I used to just go in there and watch movies all the time. Well, I should be working on something or other. And the head of our course came in, and he saw me in there. I was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Research." He was like, "Are you just watching movies?" I was like, "Yeah." So okay, cool. What are you watching? And I wasn't even watching anything with like artistic integrity. I was watching Spaceballs, like this old like comedy, like Star Wars spoof. And I still remember it. And he said, "So what are you watching?" I was like, "Spaceballs." There's no point lying. And he said, "Okay, that's fine, Matt, that's fine. Who directed it? I was like, I don't know. He's like, okay, Mel Brooks directed it. I was like, okay, who's that? He's like, okay, look, if you're going to bunk off and watch movies, first off, learn the name of the director, learn what else they've done, watch all of their movies, and then you're actually learning. You're not just playing around. So, that's fascinating. So then I went through all this like back catalogue of like directors and you know, what they're, you know, before that point movies were just movies. I just enjoyed them, and at that point it's like, okay, oh wow, different directors have different styles, different writers have different techniques, even the editors, you know, so important. So it's fascinating, and I loved it. And so then I got into motion graphic design, which I didn't even know was a thing. You know,
that's
when
awesome.
you're at school, you think of art as just being this one big subject, but Art Foundation is very specifically designed to narrow that down. You do everything, even if you're not into it. You know, you do fashion and textiles and product design and interaction design and motion graphics and all this. And I just, you know, I got kind of recommended motion graphics, and I didn't even know it was a thing. And it just suddenly, I was like, oh my God, this is what I've been looking for. Like my whole childhood, I didn't know you could do this. I thought this was like a hobby, but wait, you get a job in this? Is amazing. So yeah, the interview process for my degree was quite fascinating. I wanted to go to, I was on the foundation year at Ravensbourne, and I wanted to do the degree at Ravensbourne, and they do an internal assessment rather than making you put, you know, Ravensbourne down on your university like UCAS form and wasting a place that you're never going to get. They do an internal assessment, and there was about 30 kids, and we all wanted to do the motion graphic design degree. And the head of the degree, who shall remain nameless for obvious reasons, as you'll see in a minute, he sat us all down, and he was like, "Okay, everyone, I've got this brief. Go away, you know, do the brief for 2 weeks, and then come back. You have to present it to the class, and that presentation will be the basis for, you know, interviews and whether you get onto the course." And the brief was really simple. You know, so I don't know if you know what brand idents are. It's like BBC One, BBC Two, Channel 4. Yeah, between the TV shows, they have like the number or their logo come up, and someone with a silky voice comes on, and it's like, next on BBC One is, you know, whatever. You know, so you have these like short like animations or whatever. And he said, okay, go away and do these BBC Two idents. You've got to come back with 2 storyboards, and you've got to present them in 2 weeks' time. Okay, fine. And the thing about a foundation year was it was a bit of a joke, right? Because it's very self-initiated. No one's guiding you really. No one's making you do stuff.
Yes.
And even when you do make stuff, there's no negative feedback. You know, there's no like Simon Cowell judge at the end of it. You know, it's only the positive judges, you know. So there's like, you know, you come in and you're like, you know, here's my project, and they go, oh, okay, well, you've turned up, here's a B, well done. It's like, you know, your ideas aren't they're okay, you haven't really put any effort in, but here's a B. Oh, thank you very much, and off you go. Like foundation year is really about like helping you learn about art. It's not really about, you know, actual grades. And so we did this, you know, the course leader set this brief, and everyone came back thinking it would be the same setup where you present your ideas and it's all very, very friendly. And like, okay, so my surname's Beveridge, right? So I'm right up the front of the alphabet. So in the list of like who goes first, it's always alphabetical order. So I'm so used to going first and stuff. And the guy kind of stood up and he was like, okay, you know, thank you so much. I hope you guys have enjoyed the last 2 weeks doing this brief. Like first up is, you know, some Aaron Aarons, whoever it was, beginning with A. And you know, it's actually, I remember it was this girl stood up, and he goes, okay, let's see your ideas. And she goes, well, I've only done one. And he went, okay, fail, sit down.
Wow.
And everyone was like, what? And he went, yeah, fail, sit down. And everyone was like, excuse me? And he went, yeah, I asked for 2 ideas and you've only done 1. So unfortunately, you haven't met the brief. So sit down. And she just like, and everyone was just stunned. And the second guy stood up, and he's like, oh well, I have done 2 ideas. Okay, fine. And he held up these storyboards, and he had 2 storyboards, and he goes, I've got these 2 ideas. And the guy goes, fail, sit down.
What?
And the guy went, what? And he said, look at your storyboards. And the guy had drawn every frame of the storyboard was a square. He goes, have you ever seen a square TV? And social media didn't exist back then. So it's like, have you ever seen a square TV? And the guy's like, no. He's like, why have you drawn them as squares? That's fail, sit down. And the guy's like, oh. And he just sat down, and everyone was just like in shock. No one knew what to do. And then the guy's like, Beveridge. I'm like, oh no, God, oh no. But by that point, I kind of figured what was coming was this kind of reaction. And I was kind of the opposite of these two. Like, so first of all, I'd done about 12 ideas, not 2.
Wow.
And because I knew that over delivery was probably a better idea. And secondly, by pure chance, not by any actual design, my storyboard frames were rectangular because my student union card was rectangular, and I'd literally just traced around my uni card. And and my first idea, he just tore into it like it was the worst idea ever. And in fairness, it wasn't a great idea. And he just tore it apart, and I basically didn't even try to defend it. I kind of just went, do you know what? You're right. This is not one of my stronger ones, but actually the second one, I actually really like the second one. And excuse me, I basically tried to lighten the tone a bit and not get too offended. And I kind of figured that maybe he was having a bad day or something. And but I chatted through my 12 ideas. He tore some apart. We talked about some of them. I tried to change his mind a bit. And then I sat down afterwards and I was like, oh man, that was a proper grilling. I've never seen anything like it. And then one of my best mates.
Sounds like he was having more than a bad day.
Well, this is the thing, and it's quite interesting because what happened later is the thing that's really fascinating, where he basically did this to everyone. It's like 30 students, and one of my best mates, a guy called Steve, is very similar. He's very similar to me. Like, he doesn't really take offence to much stuff. He tries to lighten the mood when he can. He's a good designer, and he basically reacted the same as I did, and after this absolute car crash of a presentation experience, the guy was like, well, thank you very much, it's been interesting to see what you guys come up with, and we'll be in touch. And we all everyone just filtered out of this room, and me and Steve looked at each other and we were like, pub? Yeah, pub. we went straight to the pub to try and decompress, and we went to the pub next to the uni, and we got a couple of pints and sat down. And as we sat down, this tutor came in who had done the grilling, and he walked in with a couple of other tutors, and he clocked me and Steve sat there. And we just tried to go invisible immediately. We're like, hide, immediately hide. And the guy saw us and was like, oh, okay. And he came over, and we were bricking it. And we're like, oh God, what's gonna happen here? And he came over and he said, he's like, hi guys, it was lovely to meet you today. Thank you so much for your time. We were like, okay, thanks. How did it go? And he went, look, I'm really sorry about that. I know it would have been really hard, and it was great to hear what you guys did. Just so you know, the reason that I did that is not because I'm a bad guy, and it's not because I'm trying to insult you or put you guys down. It's actually because anybody can teach good design, anyone can teach good animation, but what I can't teach, or what's very hard to teach, is the right mindset. And what you're going to have to understand if you get into this field, everyone takes creative very personally, understandably, because it comes from you, it's your ideas. And he goes, everyone takes it very personally, but it's really important that you learn to differentiate emotion from what you need to do to get a good project. You need to be able to understand feedback, and you need to really take harsh feedback and criticism, because when you're in the industry, clients won't sugarcoat anything.
That's very true.
My role today, counterintuitive though it sounds, is not to see how good at art you are or design you are. It's to test your mindset around learning and taking on board feedback, and and then he was very nice. He basically like that, and I have to say, you guys did really, really well. So thank you. And I really enjoyed the debate we had about your work. It's good to back it up, but only to a certain level. Okay, fine. And sure enough, you know, me and Steve got onto the degree. We're one of three people that got on, and it was really fascinating how like sometimes the exam you think you're doing is not the exam you're actually doing.
100%,
you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it was fascinating, and yeah, then I did the degree, loved the degree, had a great time. Again, just like the more you follow your passion,
Yes.
the more you meet like-minded people who energize you and improve what you do. And the thing I loved about motion graphics, like, you know, Ravensbourne is a fantastic degree. I loved it, and the uni was great, and it was quite interesting. Like the ethos of motion design is and has always been a very collaborative experience. You know, everyone in the degree was sharing ideas, sharing techniques. You know, what software did you use? All this sort of stuff. Not every form of design is like that. You know, the fashion industry was quite interesting. It's a bit more individualistic in some respects. So people kind of hide their work because they wouldn't want people to copy it. Whereas the motion design degree was almost the opposite, where everyone would be like, "Hey, check this out! Oh my God!" you know, find a new button on, you know, After Effects, and suddenly you can make something in, you know. Something really cool, and then everyone like sponges off each other. And I think that experience of the degree is really what I've taken into my career since then, which is a shared experience and sharing knowledge and sharing enthusiasm and passion is so much more important than being the best at a thing, or, you know, trying to do everything on your own. And that's, you know, goes outside of your career, you know. Yeah, so yeah, I love it. So I feel like I've talked a lot about my past,
No, it's
but
awesome.
yeah, it was great. I loved it. And then I worked in I got a job in a music video production company in music advertising, which sucked really badly.
The way you said
Um,
that.
it was like a proper sweatshop, and it's really hard to get a job out of uni. You know, we're you know at Boulder, we're really proud of our young talent initiative, which I can talk about later if you like. You know, we like helping young talent into the industry because it's hard. And yeah, when I graduated, I used to work during the day for this music video production company, and then I'd work at night for an advertising agency where. If you're a graduate freelancer with a client base of 2 companies, you just say yes to whatever they've got. So I would work during the day at one place, and then on my lunch break, I'd go pick up briefs and you know, collect feedback from this agency. Then I'd go home at work at night for this agency, and then yeah, and after a year of working for these 2 places freelance, I got offered a place at one. So I got offered a place, the music video production company, this kind of like basement sweatshop place, which I didn't really like at all, offered me a job. And then I said to the agency, I was like, they've offered me a job. And they went, oh, can we offer you a job? And I was like, hello, bidding war. This is going to be great. Okay. You know, I'm thinking I'm suddenly going to be this prized possession. And, you know, I got 2 companies pitching for me, and the agency. You know, this was a long time ago, so I'm happy. Yeah, happy to talk numbers. Like the music video production company said, you know, the salary would be £17,000. I was like, okay. I'm thinking, here comes the bidding war. I'm going to push this up. So I went to the agency. I was like, they've offered me 17 grand, and the agency went, well, we can offer you 20. I was like, oh, that's very kind of you. Thank you very much. That's great. And I wanted to work. I was going to choose the agency, whatever, really, unless the music video production company went really big. So I went back to the music video production company and went, well, this agency offered me 20. And the creative director looked at me and went, yeah, you're not worth that. So no. I was like, oh, okay. I think I'll go work at the agency then.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But do you know what? Like, it was fascinating. Like these 2 companies, like mentorship is really important.
Yeah,
and
I agree with that.
it's so important. And having, you know, you can definitely have mentors, you know, that you've never met. You know, you look at your celebrities and whatnot, and, you know, people love that, and that's great. But having physical people standing right in front of you that you can see how they operate on a daily basis is so key. And this was quite a like pivotal moment, I guess, when I was younger, which was the music video production company, who I won't name. They were just awful. Like they didn't treat their staff well. The leadership was not good. They didn't prioritize creativity. They prioritized profitability. They didn't treat their staff well. They were in a basement, so they didn't even have windows. So in the winter, you wouldn't see daylight. You know, you'd turn up at 8:30 and you'd leave at 6:30, and you wouldn't see daylight.
Oh my
And
gosh.
it was awful. You know, you learn fast. There were certain positives that did come out of it, but overall, it was a real experience in how, in my mind, not to run a business. Like there was one day where the owner of the business sat everyone down and went, right, I've been watching the CCTV, and here is what time you all arrive, and here's what time you all leave, and that's not good enough. And everyone was like, "Oh my God, what?" It's like surveillance. Whereas the flip side was the agency that I went to was called Iris, and Iris were brilliant. They're still going. They're still amazing. I still talk to a lot of them. You know, the people from there all the time. And Iris were the opposite. They really prioritized culture. Their leadership were really inspiring and motivating. They really looked after their staff. Everyone worked crazy hours and worked really hard. And burnout was definitely a risk. At the same time, we had so much fun and everyone was so motivated and we did such good work that these having, you know, people look at mentorship as like find one amazing person and learn from them. But I feel like mentorship can also be businesses, and it can also be you learn as much from bad experiences as good experience,
Yeah.
sometimes more. And so this was one of those where you had these two ways of running a business, just like night and day. And one of them I couldn't wait to get out of, and one of them I was at Iris for nearly 8 years, and I absolutely loved it. Iris were phenomenal. They really um, they set the mold for our business. You know, Boulder and Pebble that we run are really based off the Iris ethos around culture and creative excellence and just enjoying the journey. You know, so I worked at Iris for 8 years. We did. Iris's mindset was say yes first and figure it out later.
Oh yeah.
Like whatever.
I think Richard Branson said the same thing too, to be quite fair.
Yeah. He's a really good example of that. Yeah. Mm.
He definitely said that. He said, say yes, figure it out later, and you'll learn along the way as well. So
Yeah, it's so true. And like, I think like I don't know about you, but like the first thing I wanted to be when I was a kid was an inventor. Like the first thing, well,
you
Formula
would have
One
been really
driver.
good at that, actually.
Thank you. But that's kind of what I do. That's kind of what I do. Like, it's not like what I put on LinkedIn, but that idea of like all this stuff when I was a kid, there was like, you know, MacGyver, the A Team, Wallace and Gromit, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. You know, Dick Van Dyke and Chitty Chitty Bang
Yes.
Bang. He's always coming up with crazy inventions. Like, I wanted to be someone who could solve problems with not enough resources at your disposal. Do you know what I mean? And you look at it like, oh God, how are we going to get out of this? And actually, when you get a creative brief, like often your first thought is, what? Like, oh man, I don't know how we're going to do that. And then you figure it out, you know. And yeah, and Iris was just built like that. It was a problem solving like environment where everyone was in it together. We worked really hard, we worked really late, and in hindsight, like these days, the hours we used to work is the kind of thing that, in some ways, quite rightly, is kind of frowned upon. But it was so good culturally. It was so fun having this like melting pot of talent, all focused around problem solving and making great work and having a great time. And yeah, it was brilliant. And we did everything like, you know, I think one of my flaws, which is also a strength, is like I get bored really easily, and I'm not very good at just doing one thing forever. I like to be doing something different every day, and you know, Boulder and Pebble that we run is very much like that. But Iris is where that comes from. It's like one day we'd be doing, you know, gig visuals for Jamiroquai, then the next minute we'd be doing kind of helping launch like global ad campaigns for James Bond and Spider-Man, and then we'd be doing, the very early phases of social media marketing and figuring out whatever that meant and how it worked. So it was great, that for me, that inventor mindset is something that I really try to adopt pretty much every day. And we started Boulder and Pebble. This is myself, my brother James, and Charlie, 14 years ago now, and that is like our mindset every day. Like every day, something. There's always something falling over. There's always something falling over, and when I think people think when you run a business, you delegate and you take loads of money. It's just like the opposite. Like, even now, 14 years later, even yesterday, I was buying toilet roll and coffee because we'd run out, and, not only do I work in, my background is in animation, but now, as you said earlier, my job is Chief Innovation Officer. My whole job is around, a huge part of my job is around setting us up for the future challenges that are coming with AI and all that sort of things. But also I'm in charge of our HR and our culture. So I have no background in HR, like zero. I'm not trained. So everything comes from experience. And fortunately, we've got a brilliant, HR company that we use called Face to Face HR. They're brilliant and they're so nice. And they add actual process to what my thinking is. Like they take what I think and then they turn it into good actual usable documentation. so it's a bit less cowboy, but do you know what, it's great. And I think I think the proudest thing I think one of the proudest things things I'm most proud of since running the business is when we got the Sunday Times Best Places to Work list. We were on that.
I like that.
Last year, which was brilliant because it's a real reflection of the culture that we have. And it's great. It's great. And culture's it's a dark art, man. Getting it right, you have to. It's not about a tick box exercise. It's like what do our team need? What do they want?
That's one of the things I love is the fact that, because of the way the world is going at the moment, and I'm sure we all know about it, and I try to distance myself from the political background of things. And as a creative person, our mindsets are very eccentric on how we think and how we see. Most of the time we see things from a bird's eye point of view, so we're more open-minded. We're more open-minded about life and things and how we absorb those things. And like I said to you before when we was on the phone, everything here around us is energy, so it's very important on who you bring yourself around, who you put yourself in front of, having mentorships as we spoke about. All these things are so important. But I hope, and this is me just being hopeful, that as much as the people who do have the power are not necessarily changing it in the way to help the people, there are people in the world that will stand against it. I won't say the word fight, because fight can have a very negative connotation towards it. So I'll say stand up and go against, in a good perspective, people who are trying to do things in the wrong way, to embrace culture more. I will say that, and I find that important.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the thing that's fascinating for me is obviously you have to be able to embrace different voices and different ideas, right? And do you know what, genuinely, I mean this sincerely, one of the things I love about this podcast is that everyone seems to hero worship someone who has all the answers. But for me, I think it should be the opposite, where really it's the people that ask the right questions are the ones that I'm fascinated by, and I think should have a bit more power. Because you look at, and again, not getting political in any way, but when you hear people like Elon Musk and Donald Trump at the moment, there's no that they just have an answer. Is it the right one? Probably,
Probably
maybe
not.
to some people, maybe not
Maybe
to
not.
others. It almost doesn't matter whether their answer is right or wrong. The point is they have a very, very clear mindset that people either gravitate towards or don't. And so it takes out any sense of nuance or grey area or anyone else's opinion. And for me, the thing that's the single most important part of running a business that has a good culture is the idea that everyone has a voice and everyone has the ability to express that voice.
Yes.
And and I think so. I give an example. So again, like in the same way that I don't know, I've never done HR before, and I run HR. Like every business is a kind of ever evolving beast.
Yes.
And there's a number of ways it can evolve. It's no business is the finished article, right? Every business is changing constantly, hopefully improving. And the way that you change that tends to be you've got your Elon Musk approach, which is he's the guy at the top and just goes, right, we're doing this. Or our approach is the flip side of that, which is we motivate people and we ask them, like, what do you need? What do you want? How do you feel? And the thing that's really interesting is that, again, when I say like we're a work in progress, we really are. We make mistakes all the time and we try not to make that happen twice. And so the thing that is so important when I say give for everyone a voice is like, for example, about a year ago, one of the team came up to me and said, Matt, can I borrow you? I said, yeah, sure, what's going on? And we sat down in the meeting room and she came up to me and she's amazing. Like, she's really smart, really motivated, incredible with clients. She's just like a brilliant, she's now a member of our leadership team. She's great. And she sat me down and she goes, Matt, yeah, what's our period policy? I was like, oh, what? Oh, pardon me? And she was like, our period policy. Like, what is it? I was like, I don't know. I should know this. I should know this. I run our HR. Like, I should know this. Like, and I like, why don't I? And I looked at our kind of employee handbook, which is this like it's got all of the information that our employees could ever possibly want, maternity leave, paternity leave, sick leave, all this sort of stuff. And there was a bit in there about general sick leave. I was like, well, that's not good enough. I'd never even considered that. I was like, well, look, first off, thank you so much for coming to me about it. I'm really glad you feel like you can talk to me about it, because I know that the three founders of the business, we're all guys, and so our leadership team is actually more female, but like the founders are all guys, and there's three of us, and there's not much we can do about that. But the idea that, first of all, that they feel they can come to me and talk about it openly and honestly, because like the most important thing is, one, that everyone feels they can have a voice, and secondly is that you're encouraging people to express that and using the kind of language that that is inclusive in all ways. And we talked it out, and I was like, do you know what? It's a really good point. I've just not considered it, and that's on me. I really should have thought about that. Like, what would you suggest? And she just went, well, tell you what, let me go away and talk to all the girls, and I'll give you a bunch of information. And sure enough, she went away, and a week later we had a chat, and she goes, right, okay, so here's a bunch of other companies' period policies. Have a read of those and see which ones you think work and what we can take. And here's like, most of the girls in the office got together, and they all had feedback, and they all had ideas, and they all came to us. And some of those ideas, within a week, well, not even within a week, within a day, we're like, right, we're going to buy hot water bottles for people that are struggling in the office. We're going to change our policy around language and terminology and inclusion. We're going to have feminine hygiene products in all of the bathrooms. We're going to have all this sort of stuff. And we built an entire new process, and most of it was really simple. It was just that it hadn't been brought to our attention before. And so suddenly then we had a period policy, but then I started writing this period policy based on all these other businesses, and I found myself going, well, hang on a minute, okay, so 50% of our team well, more than 50% are probably struggling with this to various degrees. But then that guy over there, he's got chronic back pain, and that guy over there has, migraines, and so suddenly, okay, well, am I going to have to write a policy for everything? Every possible outcome. So then it led us down this kind of entire rabbit warren of the period policy was basically this kind of like gateway into a well-being manifesto with a load of ideas around not just for women struggling with periods, but it's also, anyone who's got, whatever issue it might be, there's something in there that helps. And all of it really comes down to, not all of it, but the lion's share it comes down to communicate what your problems are. Have someone that you can trust, that you can go to. It might be a line manager. It might be our studio manager who runs the office. It might be HR. We've got Team Good Vibes is one of our teams, does all of our culture stuff. It might be like whoever it is, as long as there's someone you feel you can go to, express how you feel, make it known, and then we can try and work around it. And the fact that we didn't have a period policy beforehand, it's not any sort of, it wasn't because of any form of discrimination or something like that. It's just we hadn't thought about it.
Yeah.
And so it being voiced meant we could actually action it. Another example is paternity leave. I'm very much the crash test dummy of our business. Like, I'm the oldest person in our company, right? I'm 43. So we got one person who's a bit older, but he's fully remote. But like I'm the oldest person, so I've tended to go through things before anyone else. I was the first to get married. I was first to have kids. And our company is quite young, we're a Shoreditch-based agency and production company. And and so our paternity leave was 2 weeks. Well, when I first had our first kid, it was 2 weeks from the day your kid's born, and that was just statutory. That's what the government said was normal. And then the thing with my first daughter, for various reasons, she spent 8 days in hospital after she was born. Wow. So I came out of hospital with my wife, and I'd been sleeping on a hospital floor for 8 days. And I came out, I was like, wait, so now I've got 4 days until I have to go back to work. That doesn't make any sense. And so then I was like, okay, let's change that to 2 weeks from when you leave the hospital. Yeah, that makes more sense. And then, we've updated it and changed it. And now the guy who, the most recent guy who had paternity leave had more paternity leave for his one kid, his first kid, than I've had for all 3 of mine combined, because we've just gradually improved it. And I don't see that as, I don't look back, with any sort of anger at like, why didn't we have this before? Because it's just part of the process. And so if you've got, in my mind, like, good leadership is not that something's wrong. Good leadership is the ability to change things that are wrong and listen to your team.
I like that.
Rather than just kind of cracking on,
I like that. And that's one of the things I like the most. I was going to ask you, Matt, I know that we spoke about art, which was quite a way back, but one of the things I was going to ask you is, I know that people have this perception of art that we were talking about. So if I said to you, if your kids wanted to, I think I know the answer. If your kids wanted to do art or something that you didn't believe, which I don't think is true, to be fair, was creative, or would you still allow them to do it? So if one of your children said, okay, Dad, I want to be a musician. The next one said, Dad, I want to go into sports. The next one said, Dad, I want to be gymnastic. It doesn't matter what it is. I know in many generations before, people don't see art as a way of making an income. Whereas in my mindset, I say to people with the open-mindedness of saying, every musician that you like, every song that you like, every artistic art piece that you like, someone took a chance on themselves and believed in themselves enough to say, I can do it. And a lot of the time, sadly, a lot of artists and musicians make more money when they pass away, which is very true. From your perspective, Matt, how do you feel about supporting your kids, about doing things that they love?
I think it's fascinating. So there's a few things in there. I guess first of all, before even getting onto art, and I know this is a pretty standard view for a lot of people, but if you follow that thing you're passionate about, whatever you do, if you're not passionate about it, you won't get through the hard times, and there will be hard times. I've been in this industry for like 20 plus years. When the weird thing about running a business, yeah, as I said, Boulder and Pebble is 14 years old now, and the failure rate of any business, like 60% of businesses fail in their first year. To get to 14 years, I heard a guy talking about this the other day, 0.01% of businesses will survive 14 years. And it doesn't mean that, for us, we're very, very fortunate to be in that very small group. At the same time, we've had some rough times over the years, and we've managed to get through them for all kinds of different reasons. And the only way you can get through those is if you're passionate about what you're doing. Because if you're really not passionate and you don't believe in it, then you're never going to get through that rough time. So first off, if that's something that they're into, absolutely. I guess the kind of, I mentioned earlier about having the night and day experience with these
Yes.
the two agencies. Like, my parents are like, they were opposites attract. They were like absolute cliche of opposites attract, right? My mum was like, just let him do whatever he wants. Oh, he wants to go to art college, great, perfect, yeah, go to art college. You're doing motion graphics, fantastic, brilliant. Mum, what is motion graphics? Are you TV repairman? Is that what that is?
TV
I'm like, no, that's
repairman?
not. She thought I was honestly, she thought I was a TV repairman for a good
I
5
love your
years.
mum.
Honestly, she's brilliant. Oh, she's so funny. But she was the one who encouraged me to like follow what I wanted to do. She was like, whatever you want to do, you follow that. And there's something really inspiring and noble about that. But my dad was a businessman, right? He ran his own business. He was a lawyer, and he's like super smart, ran his business. And he said, look, if that's what you want to do, that's fine. Like, you absolutely go for it. But you have to have business sense behind it as well. I know we talked about this earlier. Like, if you could be if you want to be a poet, brilliant, but you're probably not going to make much money out of it. So whatever you do, just make sure that you're thinking smart about how you're going about it. And so my mum and dad added this really nice balance. My dad was very much like, you have to make money, you have to put food to the table. And my mum was just like, follow your dreams, do whatever you want. And both of them are right, neither of them are wrong. But for me, I often kind of hark back to that with my kids. Like, if my kids they're following their passions every day. There's three of them, and they change every week. What they're doing, but what they're into. But when they start gravitating towards stuff, there's two things. Yeah, like, first of all, if you're passionate about it, and if you can make a living out of it,
Yeah.
working smart is so important. So not just being blind to the idea of how hard it might be. Those are the two mindsets. Like, what do I want, and then what are the kind of, what's the reality behind what my life would be like if I follow that. It's not that you have to choose one or the other. It's just being aware of it. Our business, for example. Sorry, digressing again. Our business. One of the reasons that I genuinely think we work so well. Myself, James, and Charlie are the three founders, and we are so different. If you look at us, we look similar. We're all about the same age. We all love sport. But we are so different, like, mentally. Charlie is this really business minded. He's got a finance background. He adds like financial security and process to what we do. I have no interest in finance whatsoever. I wish I did. I just don't, right? I run a business. I should have an interest in knowing what profitability is. I'm just not interested. I'm interested in people and product. So I'm the opposite end of the spectrum to Charlie. So Charlie thinks like, how the hell do we stay afloat and keep the lights on? And I'm like, how do we have a good time and make great work? So if I was running the business on my own, like, we would have a great time, but we would go under so fast. And like, if Charlie ran the business, like in the short term, we'd probably make a whole bunch more money. But at the same time, you need to take people with you on that journey. And you need to build around like culture. And I'm probably doing Charlie a massive disservice because he does a lot more than that. But he's great, you know. So honestly, the three of us are that kind of the three legs of the stool, you know, analogy of like if one of us goes, it falls over because you know we need Charlie's mindset around process and finance and all that, and then we need my mindset around creative product and people and culture, and then my brother is the bit that ties all of that together. You know, he takes all of that and he knows how to lead. He's like the natural leader of our business. He's the guy that can take people on the journey when times are tough. He'll help people through it, you know, and motivate people. And when times are good, he will help celebrate it. So the three of us have really, really different functions. And if you don't have those, then it's really, really tricky to run a business. And it's the same with, you know, when you kind of go back to your question around if my kids wanted to do the creative industries, first of all, they have to have those mindsets of what are my skills, but what's the practicality, and how do I make it real, rather than just like a nice hobby. Because everyone loves the idea of turning their hobby into business, right? During lockdown, so mate, everyone. It's like, I'm going to start my own bakery because I've made a load of cakes. Great, okay, see how that goes. It's great. And then after a month, like, I freaking hate making cakes now. I make so many cakes, and I don't make anywhere near as much money as I used to as an accountant. And like, I know. And then they revert back to it because doing your hobby as a living sounds great, but the practicalities are often nowhere near as practical as what they are. So first of all, you've got to think about like that, you know, again, that, you know, what is the business mindset about taking what I love and turning it into a job? But then the second part of your question is around the creative industry. And so, as I mentioned earlier, my school to this day is this like factory that, as I said, churns out lawyers and accountants. And I actually had a chat with the headmaster a couple of months ago. He's a really nice bloke, and I'm trying to help them change that at the moment, and try and help improve that as part of our young talent initiative. But I think the creative industry it's got such an amazing future. I know that AI is terrifying everyone and exciting everyone in equal measure at the moment. The creative industry is one of those things that will definitely be disrupted by AI. At the same time, the potential for it is amazing. If you look at even without AI, like the creator economy right now, you know, if you look at the stats behind people that make music, make videos, the classic example is like Mr. Beast makes more money than the CEO of YouTube, right? Because he makes stuff. You know, there's so many examples of that, whether it be, you know, TikTok, YouTube, you know, it doesn't matter. Like almost every platform, the people that are the lead creators make more than the CEOs. And that's not that the CEOs aren't doing well for themselves, they very clearly are, but the creator economy is growing and growing. So whether it be like social media marketing, whether it be, you know, like, again, not one to show my age, but when I was a kid, there was 4 TV channels. You know, that's not a lot of content. Now, Netflix and Amazon Prime and Apple TV and all that, they cannot churn out work fast enough to kind of quench the thirst that we all have for entertainment.
There you go.
So the creator economy is getting bigger and bigger. And so one of my arguments to the slightly old school mindset of what used to be safe jobs, I don't think are as safe as they once were with the AI revolution that we're in. And I think the creative industry is one of the places that is not only, it will be disrupted, but I think it can harness it in a way that builds it, grows it, and expands it. So I actually think the creative industries, you know, like when going back to schools are historically, schools are designed around passing exams. Can you retain this information? If you can pass this test. And the kids that couldn't pass the tests were the ones, a bit like me, who would sit in a lesson and stare out the window.
That's me.
You stare out the window and your brain is just like ticking over about wondering what's going on outside, or
But it's also
wondering
because
about.
Matt. It's also because Matt, they didn't have this understanding, and I know you want to talk about this as well, of dyslexia, of ADHD, of autism, of so many, the spectrum of what was really not necessarily, not wrong, because that's the wrong terminology, of how special and different we were.
Yeah, well, this is it, right? So the thing that AI enables, right? You're going to get so many people that just using it in the same way every single day. So if you put yourself in, like, okay, Boulder, my business is an advertising agency. We work with some incredible life sciences companies and tech brands, and the thing that's really fascinating is when a brand comes to you and says, "We'd like you to pitch for this work," they're going to they're asked like four or five different businesses, pitch for this work. You come up with an idea, you pitch it, they choose one, you go make it. It's quite straightforward. But the thing now is that with AI, people are defaulting to what does AI think as opposed to what do I think. And so what happens is, you can like, this isn't exactly what happens, but you can see where it's going, where a brand goes to five agencies. Here's the brief. All five agencies put the brief into ChatGPT. What do we do? ChatGPT is based on logic, and it's based on logic, and it's based on its existing knowledge and all the information that's fed into it and that it's learning from. So it will, broadly speaking, give all five agencies the same answer because they've asked the same question in the same way. All five agencies pitch the same thing, and then the brand goes, okay, they're all variations on a theme. How do I choose? Or the alternative is that kid that thinks a bit differently, who's the one that stares out the window all day, doesn't bother putting it into ChatGPT and goes, here's what I think, or goes and talks to people that are associated with whatever that pitch may be, whatever that brief may be, and gets knowledge from the people on the ground, as opposed to, and this is what we always do at work, is, we go to, in the let's say the kind of life sciences businesses that we work for, these amazing companies that are genuinely changing the world for the better, like trying to cure various illnesses and all this sort of stuff. We don't know what it's like to be scientists. They do. We don't know what it's like to be in a lab. They do. ChatGPT doesn't know what it's like to be in a lab and understand the frustrations that scientists have, right? So if everybody goes through this process of just asking AI, working out what the answer is through AI, and then just slightly tweaking it, you're just going to get this like dross of just boring kind of common sense answers. If you ask that kid with ADHD who's staring out the window, not listening, you're going to get an you're going to get an answer you're not expecting. You're going to get something different. And so it's really, really fascinating. Like, I don't know if you saw, did you see last week the study came out that MIT did on brain activity with AI users? Did you see that? It's amazing. So they basically asked people a series of challenges. They said, like, here's a problem to solve. Group one, go use AI. Group two, do it yourself. And group three, start on your own and then use AI once you've got an idea. And it was really fascinating because the day they measured everyone's brain activity, and it was amazing because I'm going to try and get these stats right. So the people that used AI did things 60% faster than the people that didn't use any sort of AI, but they only used they had a 47% drop in their neural engagement, their actual brain use. So basically what that meant was they did something quicker, but when asked what they'd made, they couldn't even remember what they'd said.
Yes.
They had no idea because they're just going through this process and letting AI do all the work. So the people that didn't use AI were way slower. The people that did use AI from the start were way quicker, but ultimately just didn't know what they were actually making. Yeah. And so what they discovered was, if you've got people that start the process themselves and come up with unique insights, and they come up with their own thoughts, and then they use AI to channel those, improve them, stress test them, come up with creative ideas, that is the way to operate, which is start with you. Start with your unique idea. Start with your unique experience, and then use AI to turbocharge your process as opposed to define the process. So it's a different way of looking at it, but it's it's so important. It's so important to keep you as part of the process, and that's why the creative industry, when I talk about law and accountancy, for example, AI can churn through infinite
Yep.
legal documentation
Yes.
in a split second.
Yes.
Whereas before lawyers would have to like go hit the library. That's oversimplification of what they do, right? But you have to.
I like the way you did
Sorry, I really don't mean to put it down, because it is a very important. My dad was a lawyer, my wife's a lawyer. Again, no problem with lawyers, but it's going to be disrupted, right? Because again, it comes down to that. Are you looking to remember information to pass an exam? Which actually, that's where a lot of what law is, right? It's information.
Yes.
How do you churn through the books? How do you churn through the precedents that have been set in the past? And AI can smash through that, and then you can channel it. But creativity is almost the opposite. Using AI should be turbocharging your ideas, and it should be turbocharging your perspective and your opinions, as opposed to the other way around. So for me, like, if my kids were going to go into the creative industries, first of all, are they passionate about it? That would be great. Is there like a business sort of sense behind the area they want to get into? Then that is an added bonus, because that helps. It does help being able to make a living from what you do. And then three is just the industry in general, which is changing so fast, and no one knows the future. But it really is. It's fascinating. I guess. Sorry, there's a really good quote. That I'll try and not butcher this, but the important way that I look at it is, so it's by a guy called Alvin Toffler. I don't know if you've heard of this.
I've heard of his name before. Yes.
Yeah, so he was a futurist, and he came up with this great line, which is, the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read or write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. So
like that.
It's that idea of like highlighting the importance of adaptability. Everyone knows the old Darwin, it's not the biggest and strongest that will survive, it's those that can adapt the best. And that's what we're in now. It's like, how do you learn new things, unlearn the things that you know and not hold on to them too tightly, and then relearn new things. That's really where AI is changing everything.
So I know. See, I didn't even realize how long me and you have been actually speaking, Matt, which is awesome. It feels like yesterday or the other day when we were just talking again. Yeah. So I've only got two more for you. So
far away.
I know that you definitely want to answer this one.
Okay.
And I want to hear your answer, because even I'm intrigued by it. And it's legacy. So let me break it down in my terminology way, and I'd love to hear your answer. So a lot of people like to define the word legacy and say to people, legacy is based upon when a person is not here. Now, I don't necessarily believe that's true, and I always say this on the podcast. I always say, to me, legacy is when you are also alive, when you are in front of someone, how you give them a piece of who you are through your knowledge, through your touch, what you say, how you make them feel when you leave them and they pass that information on to somebody else. I think those are some, even a tiny part of what legacy is, in my opinion. But in your opinion, and only yours, what do you believe legacy means to you?
Sure. So I'm fascinated by the idea of legacy. So I'm really glad you've asked it. I'm fascinated, because I think a huge amount about legacy comes down to ego.
Yes.
And if you look back, it's that idea, especially guys, right? Guys have this, I want my family name and my genes to be carried on throughout eternity.
Throughout eternity.
Even do you know what I mean? Like everyone loves the idea of like living. Like my reputation shall live forever. I will be, I don't know, William the Conqueror or whatever. Like the idea
hold up
that
a sword and say yes.
Yeah. Look at the greatness I achieved. People love, like, a lot of guys fall into that trap of like, and that's fine. I understand that, and I think you know, that's in some respects that's fair, right? You know, legacy can be cool. I find so naming conventions of legacy is fascinating. I always find it funny when people name their kid after themselves. Like,
Junior.
I'm Matt. My child shall be Matt Junior,
Yes.
and his child shall be Matt the Third. That's I have no interest in that. I find it. Do you ever notice that doesn't happen to girls? It's only guys that get that. There's no like female
That's actually
equivalent.
quite true.
Yeah, because it's an ego, it's a male ego thing, right? And so, sorry, I'm massively digressing, but like, I think it's fascinating the mindset behind legacy, and I think people tend to think of it of like when I die, what historical remnants do I leave behind that prove that I existed? And I'm kind of not interested in that way. Like I love that idea of like my kids and my legacy and whatever I help teach them, passes through. But I think you're right. I really think that to your point, I think legacy is about leaving a place better than you found it
Yes, I
on
like that.
every yeah, no, but on every level, right? So I feel like if you leave the world a better place in some way than when you found it, if you leave a room better than when you found it, like if you go into a room and have a meeting, if you come out and go, do you know what? I think I left that room better than when I found it. I helped or I added like fun or humor or I solved a problem or every time you interact with someone, this is kind of what you were saying. It's like if you talk to someone, and it doesn't matter who it is, right? Like there's so okay, this is really niche. There's a Pret over the road from my office, and there's this lovely Chinese lady who I use every time I go in there. I go to her because she's lovely, and my wife's Malaysian Chinese, right? So Chinese New Year, me and her always say "Kong Hei Fat Choi" to each other. Happy New
Yes.
Year in Chinese,
Yes.
Kong Hei Fat Choi, and like I always go to her. I don't know her at all. She's called May. I can tell from her badge. She doesn't know what my name is, but I know that like when we go in, we give each other a nice wave and a hello. How are you? I'm fine, and then I leave and we're always smiling afterwards. And she's just like the lady in Pret who I see every now and again. Like
I like
if
that.
you can leave so I know it's a
I
really
like that.
minor example,
No,
right?
but
But
it has value. It has value.
yeah, and I think if you extrapolate that out, do you know what? I had a lovely message. What day is it? Friday, Wednesday. A lovely message from a guy who is a freelancer who's working from us at the moment, for us at the moment. He's a motion graphics designer, and he just sent me this message out of the blue, and I didn't know who he was. He said, "Matt, I don't think you'll remember me, but 11 years ago,
Oh,
you gave me my start in my career." And I was like, "Who is this guy? I don't. How did I do that?" And he went, I was like, "Oh, yeah." That's so nice. It's so nice to hear. What did I do? He just went, he's like, look, I was a graduate. I didn't have any work. I didn't know where to go. He's Belgian. He was new to London. He'd only lived in London for a few weeks. He didn't know anyone. And he basically said, look, and I messaged you because I don't know how he got my details. So I messaged you and said, could I have a job? And you said, unfortunately, we don't have anything on at the moment, but judging by your show reel, I think you'd be great for these guys. And I just sent him on to a mate of mine who
oh,
happened to have some work going. And he basically just said, we've never met and you've never met me and you haven't heard from me in 11 years, but you gave me my first in, which started this career, and now I'm freelancing for your business. So I just wanted to say thank you. And it was
see.
like, it made my week, honestly, like this guy who just out of the blue. And I think it's like, for me, that was like, that's legacy, right? Like it won't go down in history books, but it's like, I think I've helped this guy in my own little way start off down a route. And I feel like legacy is that idea of leaving any place better than you found it. So that could be Pret or it could be the planet.
There you go.
Whatever.
That
Do you
is
know
the
what I
one.
mean? Like, yeah, that's how I see it anyway.
I like it because you kind of make me remember my first kind of start. I I've always been obviously being a writer, I've always been a huge fan of publishing. And it could be book publishing, it could be music publishing, and I thought I would never get a start. And then I'm going to show you my age now. So we used to send letters out. This is how old we are. I think we just kind of started with emails roughly, but I was sending letters out. I wasn't necessarily sending emails, and I was sending letters out, and then you have to wait for it to come back to you, and so on and so forth. And I must have sent out hundreds of letters to different music publishing companies and book companies, to a point where I didn't even remember who I necessarily sent it to. But because I loved songwriting so much at the time, and writing, one came back to me and asked me to come in for an interview, and I'll never forget it. They never based things on how much experience I had or whether I've been in the industry before. I think they done it by my personality and my passion and kindness, which had never been done before. And I was with them for over 4 years, and I'll never forget it. They ended up being my mentors. And I always say to people, always remember you're first in everything, because it sets a foundation in your mind of how somebody gave you a chance and how life is based upon chances, and somebody seeing the potential in you to allow you to be great as who you are and not having to change yourself. And I think if you take that with you and elevate that into any aspect of your life, you'll realize how great you can become, and you'll realize how great your attitude can become also. So that's why I'm proud of you, Matt, for seeing that potential in someone. And I'm sure you see it in many people. I don't think it's just one person that you see it in. That the person that you done that for will remember you for the rest of his life, and most probably without you even realizing will tell his kids and his grandkids that don't be serious, but you know where his start was, and that you can make money or an income from anything that you love in your life. And again, it's just about people. It's not being a gatekeeper, basically. And I'm sure, we're going to have to do a part 2 of this podcast, me and you.
Yeah. I'm up for that. Anytime.
Anytime. So for me, it's not being a gatekeeper. It's opening doorways to people. And if you see a door that is shut or half open, you kick the door open and go through it, because you deserve a chance like everybody else.
Can I add to that?
Of course you can.
Because I feel like that is, in some respects, that really refers to something that I hear all the time around imposter syndrome. And imposter syndrome is fascinating because I think that it affects everybody differently. And that idea of just kicking down doors, what that really refers to is believe in yourself.
Yes.
And for example, like, I'm no joke, I am right now using your lovely podcast as a way of overcoming my imposter syndrome. Aww. Right? Because I genuinely, like we've run, myself, James and Charlie have run this business for 14 years, but I still don't think of myself as like qualified in any way. And the weird thing is, like, people often ask me for my opinion on stuff because I just have a lot of experience, and weirdly I sometimes have answers that people seem to resonate with and enjoy. And the thing about imposter syndrome is finding that belief. And when you say breaking down those doors, for me, most people think of imposter syndrome as being in a meeting and giving a presentation that you don't feel like you're qualified to do, or being on a panel where you feel like you're an imposter and everyone else knows but you don't. And the reality is everyone's making it up as they go along, everyone. And like, I hate the phrase fake it till you make it, but it's a similar thing where you're not faking it till you make it, you're just learning as you go.
Yes.
And you're trying your best as you go. And for me, imposter syndrome is like, I have no problem going to university lecture theatre and talking to 500 people about my experience. I find it weirdly easy. Most people who go and stand up in front of an audience, they get imposter syndrome in that environment because it can be intimidating, quite scary. Weirdly, I find it fine, but I cannot use social media. When I post on social media, I love it. I get loads of inspiration from it. Posting on social media terrifies me.
Yeah,
And there's something about it that is so
I understand it.
definitive and final. And we talked about this earlier. Like, I'm dyslexic, so spelling is a problem. So when I can talk in front of like 500 people, but writing 500 characters terrifies me. So for me, like getting out, like I've made a very intentional effort this year to start posting stuff on LinkedIn around what my thoughts are on the industry and AI and that sort of thing. And doing stuff like this is actually, I enjoy it, but this is me trying to overcome my sense of imposter syndrome. Like, I know that you get this all the time about like this has been therapy, but this is my therapy, right? It feels like, this feels like me just like working out a bit more about who I am and how I'm getting on, and it gets me to, distill my thoughts better. So I really enjoy it.
To be fair to you, Matt, talking to you has been an absolute pleasure on the phone and on the podcast. For me, I always see, again, a non-judgmental point of view, and I like to bring out the attributes of people, of who they are, and make them realize how much self-worth they have. Everybody is on this planet for an abundant purpose. And as much as we try to find that purpose, it will become apparent to us, eventually. And sometimes we can't see it, but other people can. I think I've seen about 20 reasons why you're on the planet already, and you don't need to worry about that. And I always say, never worry about another person's opinion, because the only person's opinion who is valid is yours, because you are the one making your life happen. Nobody else does that for you. And I think we need to value that truth more.
I totally agree. And I think an important part of that is knowing that you're not doing it on your own.
Yeah.
So when you say like it's really important that you value yourself and have self-belief, that doesn't mean you have to magic it up from somewhere.
No.
Right? Like,
no.
That's where friends, family,
Yes.
mentors
Yes.
come in. And so for me, having people that you can rely on and you can go to, like again, like when I said James and Charlie, the co-founders of at Boulder, they are opposite to me. Like and like starting a business isn't for everybody, but if you are going to start a business, start with somebody who has a different skill set to you, who complements yours in a way that works really well.
Yeah.
Like, have you ever heard of the Y Combinator program out in the States? It's like this legendary entrepreneurial program, right? And this program, it's like a kind of course that you go on, and it started Airbnb, Dropbox, Reddit, Twitch, all of these things came out of the Y Combinator entrepreneurial program. The one thing they stipulate at the beginning of the program is you cannot do it on your own. You have to have a partner. And I think that's one of those things where, like, self-belief doesn't just come from you magicking it up. It comes from having people that can challenge you in a positive way.
Yes.
Take some of the weight off your plate that you don't want to do.
Yes.
Like me in finance, not my thing. And like complement what you do. It doesn't mean you have to work together, but like even if you just have a friend that you can just go hang out with, who can bring out the best in you or help motivate you, or help if something's not working out, it might not be your fault, or it might not even be the problem you're trying to solve. It might not even be like, if you're struggling to find work, it might not be your fault or that business that you're interviewing at's fault. It might be that your approach isn't quite resonating with what their approach is for whatever reason. I do portfolio reviews at universities, Ravensbourne and University of the Arts London. I was in Ravensbourne last week doing portfolio reviews where a couple of people were saying, I can't find work and I don't know why, and their work is amazing, so what is it? And they were saying, like, genuinely, they said, what is it about me that means I can't get work? It's like, it's not you. It's genuinely not you, because you're great and your work is great. One of the best things about hiring designers, for example, we haven't even talked about like diversity, equity and inclusion and all that, but one of the best things about hiring designers is when I hire designers, okay, as I said, dyslexic, reading's not my thing. I'm lazy at reading. I will happily watch a show reel. I'll happily look at a portfolio, but reading a cover letter or a CV, I'm not that fussed by. So for me, I would always just go, I'd say to whoever is bringing show reels in or portfolios in, whoever our recruiter is or whoever our HR person is, I'm like, I don't care who they are. Don't show me their name. Don't show me their CV. Don't show me their age. Send me their work.
Yes.
I'll look at it and I'll tell you if I want to see it. And that is like a natural, like, instantly it's like you're not judging anyone by anything other than their output. And so I guess to go back to these guys who are struggling to find work, it's they were clearly lacking confidence because they couldn't get work even though their work was brilliant. And the problem was actually just the way that they were trying to find work, you know, didn't, I know there's no point going into the details of it, but like the way that they were approaching finding work means that they are not standing out from the crowd, even though their work probably could do and their personality probably could do. Like their approach to job hunting was the issue. So that's what I can help with. So finding people that can help build positivity, build momentum in your career or your personal life, finding those energizers around you. Like I love the phrase, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most amount of time with. You know, if you're spending time with people who have a negative impact on your life for, you know, sometimes there's good reason for that and you can need to work through it, but sometimes like you just need to find people that can empower you in the right way.
Yes, I agree.
That doesn't mean just like buttering you up and making you feel amazing, you know. It's often telling you what you don't need to hear, you know.
I like those ones as well, to be quite fair. When somebody tells you, they say it's tough love, but there's many forms of love to help push you in the right direction.
I totally agree. I have a mentor who's amazing. He's called Steve Bell, and he used to be the CEO of Iris, the agency I used to work at. And he and I meet up like quite regularly, and he comes into our business quite regularly to like chat about how we're doing. I still remember the first meeting I ever had with him, like mentorship meeting, and we'd just hired our first employee who was a designer. And I said to Steve, I was like, "This is great. Check it out. We've hired our first designer." He's like, "Matt, that's great news. Let me tell you where you're going wrong." I was like, "I haven't even told you anything yet." He's like, "No, but I know you. I know exactly what you're like, and I know what's going to happen." And I was like, "Okay, where am I going wrong?" He's like, "You're far too nice." It's like, "Really? That's a good thing." He's like, "Okay, it is a good thing. You're right. You know, encouraging positivity, giving people self-worth, making them believe in themselves. All of that is really important. But if you don't tell people what they're not doing well,
Yes.
and if you don't tell people where they can improve in a really constructive way, you're actually not going to be helping them. And what you are rubbish at is telling people what they don't want to hear. So you've got to learn how to do that." And I was like, whatever, Steve." And he's like, "Okay, come back in a year's time and let's talk about this again." Sure enough, a year later, this designer was like, we had someone else actually at that point who we'd hired, and I'd been telling them how amazing they were all year. You know, "Oh, you're amazing, you're so good," and they were just so average, and you know, in a lovely way, they weren't exceptional in any way, but I made them feel like they were, which in my mind was great for positivity. And sure enough, at the end of the year, the guy's like, "Okay, how big is my pay rise and how big is my promotion?" And I was like, "Oh, okay." He's like, "Yeah, but you've been telling me all this stuff." I was like, "I have, haven't I? Yeah, I think I've set your expert, you know." And I went to Steve, and he was like, "Told you," because that guy now thinks he's completely invincible. And actually, what you need to say is, "You're amazing at all this stuff, and if you could learn this over the next few months and hit these, you know, KPIs or whatever, then actually you can grow in this direction." And then you give them a runway that they can hit, and you give them a target, as opposed to just thinking that they're the finished article from day one. It's not even tough love. It's sort of just common sense. So for me, you know, I mentioned Simon Cowell earlier, right?
Yes.
You know, there's a reason that there's a judging panel with 3 nice people who tell everyone how amazing they are, and Simon Cowell at the end. There's a reason that everyone waits to see what Simon Cowell thinks, to see if someone's good or not, you know, because, you know, you've got the lovely people in the middle who just tell everyone how amazing they are, and that's great. But it's not until like Simon Cowell, and I'm not saying you have to be Simon Cowell, but like you need someone to give you some hard truths, you know.
I like that. Yeah.
In a positive way, and that's just as important as people who are shamelessly optimistic about everything you do, you know.
That's a good way of actually seeing things, but I do like the way that you said it, because a lot of people don't actually have that. I think I made that first mistake myself. And then as you go, trust me, as you go in life, you realize that it's not a bad thing to tell people where they go wrong. But because our hearts are built in a certain way of how we are and how we would like to be treated, we kind of treat people how we would like to be treated. And that's what kind of gives us the incentive to say, okay, you're really good at this. But then we don't realize people are not like us.
Yeah, it's so true. And this is where I always find it funny. You know, I mentioned that I run the HR in our team. You know, we talk about inclusive language and we talk about, you know, positivity and all that. But as I said, I've got 3 kids. Like the other day, my middle kid came up to me. No joke. She came up to me and went, "Daddy." Yeah, she's 6. "Daddy." Yeah. "You know, Mummy puts those moisturising strips under her eyes." I was like, "Yeah." She goes, "You need those." I was like, "Thanks. I need those, do I?" She's like, "Yeah." Then she just walked off. I'm like,
wow.
You can't get away with that at work.
But kids have no filter, and I think that's what...
I know.
The only thing, and I know we'll continue to talk, the one thing I love about kids is that the fact that they have no filter, but also, I think I lost my trail of thought there for a second. It's nice to have no filter, but the fundamental thing that with children is, where do they stop having that filter because of adults? Where do they stop having that openness? Because there is a point, even we had that. You know, I'm saying it from our point of view. When we were children, we had no filter. We were open. Where did that... And I always try to ask this question to people, but where did we as children stop being open and not be ourselves, if that makes sense?
Do you know what? I think it's a really good question, and I don't really have an answer, but what I will say is that there are certain things that parents often don't want to talk about with their kids, or find it hard to talk about with their kids. So, for example, I probably should talk about this. For example, my eldest kid, who is 9, is learning a lot about the birds and the bees at school at the moment. Okay, and so she came up to me earlier, and I did like bedtime. My missus was out, and we did bedtime with the kids, and put the younger 2 down. Went to my older kid. I was like, "Shall I do stories?" She goes, "No, Daddy. Today, let's chat." I was like, "Oh, that sounds good. Let's have a chat." So we lay on her bed, and I was like, "What do you want to chat about?" And then it all came out. The like, "Where do babies come from?" question came out. Yes. And so for me, like, I've been sort of expecting that at some point since we first had kids. So I'm still not ready for it. You know, you're never ready for these things. And I remember really distinctly thinking, I don't know what my answer is going to be, but what I just want to make sure is that she doesn't feel in any way like she can't come to me with something in the future. So like, we just had I did a terrible job of explaining it. Terrible, like legit awful. But the whole point for me of the answer was, even though I'm probably going to get it wrong, and my wife and I haven't talked about what our party line is on this, but like, the point is, I just want her to be able to come to me in the future, no matter what the question is. So 0 judgment. Take it seriously, but in a nice way. Because if you try to joke it all off, she just won't come back to me
that's
for
true.
it, you know.
Yeah, I agree there.
So take it seriously, but in like a light way where it doesn't feel like a big deal. So, you know, for me, my answer wasn't really what my plan was. My answer was, I just want to make sure we can carry on having these conversations in future, and she feels she can come to me. So that's also my excuse for doing a terrible job of answering the question. But like, yeah, the you know, the plan is just keep that openness and that honesty. And I don't know when it will go. I think all kids at some point probably, you know, when they get into their teens, they just want to, you know, ask their mates, because I probably look so old to them now, and like, you know, I'm not part of that. So, but like, no, Jay, I remember my parents turning 40, and I'm like, God, they're so old, and I'm past that now. But like, yeah, I don't know. I think to your point, I don't think there's a definitive moment, but I think for me, if you the more important thing is like just keeping the relationship light and honest and open for as long as you can, you know, because they won't always want to go to you for stuff.
That's true.
But yeah, which is actually the same in most situations, you know. I feel like I have different people in my friendship group and at work. I have different people I go to for different answers.
Yes.
You know, if I want shameless positivity, I'll go to that person.
Shameless
if I want
positivity.
yeah, you know, if I want, you know, someone who's going to actually tell me exactly how it is, I'll go to her or, you know, whatever. And, you know, I think knowing who to go to and when is important. So, in all honesty, I probably won't be the right person to go to for my kids for certain things, but I'd like to be an option that's on the table. You know?
No, I like that. I definitely like that. Matt, I'm gonna kindly ask you, I would love for people to know where they can find you on all your social media platforms. I know you said you're scared of social media at the moment, but we're working through it. So I would love for people to know where they can humbly find you on any platforms that you would like them to get in touch with you.
Sure, yeah. I guess as I mentioned earlier, I really am useless. Like I'm on Instagram and other social media platforms, but there's probably no point getting in touch with me there. The best place is really LinkedIn. I LinkedIn. When LinkedIn is used well, it's brilliant. When it's used badly, you know, look at me and my award. You know, that's fine. You know, but what I really like, I think LinkedIn is a great opportunity for sharing amazing ideas and sharing great knowledge. And so LinkedIn is really kind of my preferred place for communication and inspiration from people that I don't see regularly. So yeah, just look up Matt with a double T Beveridge, not spelled like the drink, which I get a lot. Matt Beveridge, RIDGE at the end. And yeah, Boulder Group, Boulder and Pebble are our two businesses. So if you type those in, you'll find me. And yeah, please do get in touch because I love hearing from anyone. So yeah, thank you. It's been a real pleasure. I've really enjoyed this. Thank you.
Thank you so much as well, Matt. Thank you for being yourself. Thank you for talking to me, being open and being so relaxed to be able to tell me your stories of your perspectives and what you do and how you do it. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much. And for my part, I love this show. It's been an absolute pleasure and a real honour to be on it because your mindset around not just positivity, but using creativity to help inspire and grow as people, I think is really, really admirable, and it's something that I respect so much. So yeah, keep doing what you're doing because I love listening to the show.
Thank you so much, Matt. That means a lot to me. Guys, I want to say thank you so much for listening to the As People podcast, and please remember you can subscribe and leave us a review on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, or any other platform that you prefer listening to. You can also connect with us on the Us People podcast website or the Savia Rocks website. And this is where I say again, guys, thank you so much for listening. Stay happy, stay positive, and as always, please continue to be kind to one another. Take care.
Society has made me want to validate me from my illusion that awaits me, from how the people will perceive me. It's my illusion that awaits me. We fight our war with ourselves. Our mental health is silencing us from our heart. Social media is taking our time from connecting with each other soul to soul. Why we dance on TikTok, strike a post on Instagram, fight the web on a Twitter feed, link a thing on Snapchat. Why we dance on TikTok, strike a post on a Instagram, fight the web on a Twitter feed.
Whenever I do something like this, like if I give a talk or whatever, I really enjoy it. And then we get that cut point at the end. And I suddenly go, what did I just say? I have no idea what I just said.
From being who I am every day, different possibilities within inside me. We fight in our war with ourselves. Our mental health is silencing us from our heart. Social media is taking our time from connecting with each other soul to soul. on TikTok, strike a post on Instagram, fight the world on a Twitter feed, link a thing on Snapchat. Why we dance on TikTok, strike a post on a Instagram, fight the world on a Twitter feed, link a thing on Snapchat. Why we dance on TikTok? 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 It's taking our time. Why we dance on TikTok? Why we dance on TikTok?